In the summer of 2025, a faint but unmistakable signal emerges from Moscow, hinting at the possibility of peace in Ukraine. After years of relentless conflict, the world watches as the Russian capital sends out cautious messages, whispers of negotiation, but with heavy and uncompromising conditions attached. The hope is fragile, almost ephemeral, but for millions affected by the war, even the smallest sign of change is enough to spark cautious optimism. Yet, beneath this glimmer lies a sobering reality. Any peace on offer comes at a steep price, one that could reshape the future of the region. Russian President Vladimir Putin, appearing before the world's cameras, has expressed a willingness to enter into talks. However, his message is clear. Russia will only come to the table if its core objectives are not just considered, but fully accepted. These objectives, shaped by years of conflict and political maneuvering, are non-negotiable in the Kremlin's eyes. For Putin, this is not a retreat, but a calculated move to secure Russia's interests and legacy. The Kremlin's official stance frames peace not as a mutual compromise, but as a demand for recognition of its strategic goals. The language is deliberate. This is not a negotiation between equals, but an insistence that Ukraine and the international community acknowledge Russia's claims and vision for the region. The terms are set, and the world is left to interpret whether this is a genuine offer or a diplomatic maneuver. For Ukraine and the world, this moment represents a profound crossroads. Is this a true diplomatic opening, a chance to end the suffering and destruction, or merely a test of resolve? A challenge to see who will yield first. International leaders gather in tense discussions, weighing the risks and rewards of engagement. The stakes could not be higher, as every decision now will echo for generations. The war has raged for over 3 years, leaving deep scars across Ukraine and beyond. Cities have been reduced to rubble, families torn apart, and millions forced to flee their homes in search of safety. The conflict has not only redrawn borders on the map, but also in the hearts and minds of those who have lived through its horrors. The humanitarian crisis continues to grow, with each passing day adding to the toll of displacement and loss. Now, the offer of talks, however conditional, forces a difficult and deeply personal conversation for Ukrainians and their allies. Is peace possible without surrendering the very principles and sovereignty that have fueled their resistance? Can a nation battered by war accept terms that may compromise its future? Or is the cost of continued conflict even greater? These are questions with no easy answers, and the world watches as leaders weigh hope against hard reality. The answer to these questions will define not just the next chapter of this conflict, but the fate of an entire region. As dawn breaks over a battered landscape, the world holds its breath, waiting to see whether this glimmer of hope will grow into lasting peace or fade beneath the weight of impossible choices. Russia's conditions for peace are stark. Ukraine must cede all annexed territories: Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. For Ukraine, this is an impossible concession, amounting to surrendering sovereignty and rewarding aggression. Russia insists these regions are non-negotiable for its security and historical claims. The second demand: Ukraine must abandon its NATO ambitions and accept permanent neutrality. These are not bargaining chips, but prerequisites for ending the war, according to Moscow. For Ukraine and its allies, these terms mean the loss of self-determination. This fundamental clash of principles has doomed previous talks. The path to a negotiated settlement remains blocked by these irreconcilable demands. In response to the escalating crisis and mounting international concern, Ukraine has urgently called for immediate peace talks, signaling a willingness to engage in dialogue even as the conflict rages on. The Ukrainian leadership, under immense pressure from both its citizens and the global community, recognizes that the path to peace must begin with open communication and a genuine effort to find common ground. Above all else, Ukraine is prioritizing a ceasefire, emphasizing the urgent need to halt the violence and prevent further loss of life. The government's message is clear: the suffering must end, and the first step is to silence the guns. President Zelensky's government has taken the initiative, formally inviting Moscow to the negotiating table. This invitation is not just a diplomatic gesture. It is a determined effort to halt the bloodshed and create space for meaningful dialogue. Ukrainian officials have delivered official statements and proposals, making it clear that they are ready to talk, provided that the talks are sincere and constructive. At the heart of Ukraine's position is a steadfast commitment to its sovereignty and territorial integrity. The government insists that any peace agreement must respect Ukraine's internationally recognized borders as they stood in 1991. This principle is non-negotiable, reflecting the will of the Ukrainian people and the foundation of the modern Ukrainian state. For Ukraine, any meaningful talks must begin with the withdrawal of Russian forces from all occupied territories. This demand is not just symbolic, it is a practical necessity for restoring peace and security to the region. Without a full withdrawal, Ukraine argues, any agreement would be incomplete and unsustainable. Kiev's strategy is to present itself as the reasonable actor on the world stage, consistently seeking peace while exposing Russia's demands as extreme and unacceptable. By engaging with international partners and inviting mediators, Ukraine aims to demonstrate its commitment to a fair and lasting resolution. The call for talks is a calculated diplomatic move, designed to show Ukraine's willingness to negotiate without conceding its core principles. It is not a sign of weakness, but rather a demonstration of strength and resolve in the face of adversity. Through these efforts, Ukraine hopes to rally international support, mobilize public opinion, and increase diplomatic and economic pressure on Moscow. The government understands that global solidarity is crucial for achieving a just and lasting peace. Every day that passes without progress means more destruction, more families torn apart, and more lives lost. For Ukraine, the urgency of peace is not just a political goal, it is a matter of survival and hope for a better future. In a dramatic escalation of U.S. involvement, President Trump has unveiled a sweeping new military aid package for Ukraine, signaling a major shift in American strategy. This move is not just about sending weapons. It's about fundamentally altering the dynamics of the conflict and sending a clear message to both allies and adversaries. The White House, in coordination with the Pentagon, has orchestrated a rapid deployment of resources, aiming to reinforce Ukraine's ability to defend itself against ongoing Russian aggression. Among the most significant elements of this package are the advanced Patriot air defense systems, which are now being shipped to Ukraine. These state-of-the-art systems are designed to intercept and destroy incoming missiles and aircraft, providing a much-needed shield for Ukrainian cities and military positions. The arrival of these weapons marks a turning point, giving Ukraine new hope in its struggle to maintain sovereignty and protect its people. But military aid is only part of the story. President Trump has issued a bold ultimatum to Moscow. Russia has 50 days to agree to a ceasefire or face a new wave of severe economic sanctions. This deadline is intended to force the Kremlin's hand, making it clear that the U.S. is prepared to escalate pressure if diplomatic efforts fail. The message is unmistakable. Washington is raising the stakes, and the world is watching to see how Russia will respond. The introduction of a concrete timeline injects a sense of urgency into the diplomatic process. For the first time in months, there is a clear deadline, and both sides are under intense pressure to make progress. Behind closed doors, diplomats are scrambling to find common ground, while world leaders hold emergency meetings to assess the rapidly evolving situation. The clock is ticking, and every day brings new developments. Russia's initial response has been mixed. While Kremlin officials publicly dismissed the threat of additional sanctions, calling them ineffective and politically motivated, there are signs of unease behind the scenes. Some Russian leaders acknowledge that Trump's ultimatum is different, more direct, and potentially more damaging than previous measures. Meanwhile, the steady flow of U.S. military supplies into Ukraine continues. Ukrainian soldiers are receiving new weapons and equipment, and American officials are working closely with their Ukrainian counterparts to ensure the aid is used effectively. This partnership is not just about hardware. It's about building trust and demonstrating America's commitment to Ukraine's future. The United States is positioning itself as a potential dealmaker, leveraging its military and diplomatic power to shape the outcome of the conflict. For Ukraine, the new aid is a lifeline, providing both practical support and a powerful symbol of international solidarity. But it also comes with expectations. Washington wants to see real progress toward peace and is watching Kiev's next moves closely. Ukrainian leaders are now under pressure to deliver results, both on the battlefield and at the negotiating table. The world is looking to Kiev for signs of progress, and the stakes could not be higher. For Russia, Trump's ultimatum presents a difficult dilemma. Accepting a ceasefire could be seen as a sign of weakness, but rejecting it risks even greater isolation and economic hardship. The Kremlin's next steps will be closely scrutinized by both domestic and international audiences. As the 50-day deadline approaches, tension is mounting in Moscow. Russian officials are weighing their options, aware that the consequences of their decision will reverberate far beyond their borders. The world is holding its breath, waiting to see whether Russia will choose confrontation or compromise. The outcome of this standoff could determine the future of peace talks and the fate of millions. If Russia agrees to negotiate, there is hope for a diplomatic breakthrough. If not, the conflict may enter a dangerous new phase. Around the globe, leaders, analysts, and ordinary citizens are watching Moscow's next move with growing anticipation. The decisions made in the coming weeks will shape the course of history in Ukraine and beyond. Recent optimism is tempered by a history of failed diplomacy. Earlier in 2025, two major rounds of talks in Istanbul, brokered by Turkey, ended in deadlock. While a prisoner exchange was achieved, core issues, territory and sovereignty, remained unresolved. Each side accused the other of using talks as a stalling tactic. The collapse deepened mistrust and made future dialogue even harder. The legacy of failure looms over current proposals. Both sides are wary, knowing past efforts broke down over the same irreconcilable demands. Overcoming this history will require a fundamental shift from at least one side. While leaders talk, the war's brutality continues unabated across Ukraine. Russia presses offensives in Donetsk and launches deadly missile attacks on Kiev and other cities. Civilian infrastructure is targeted, spreading terror far from the front lines. Ukraine's Air Force intercepts some attacks, but the toll is heavy. Both sides exchange long-range strikes, escalating the technological arms race. Ongoing violence makes trust, and thus diplomacy, nearly impossible. The gap between battlefield reality and diplomatic language remains vast. The economic front is a critical battleground. The EU's latest sanctions target Russia's oil sector, aiming to choke off war funding. Measures now reach beyond Europe, hitting entities like India's Nayara Energy. Russia condemns the sanctions, warning of global economic fallout and seeking support from neutral countries. Despite Russia's resilience, years of isolation are straining its economy. The relentless financial squeeze is designed to make the war unsustainable. Beneath the headlines, the war's true cost is measured in human suffering. Cities like Mariupol and Bakhmut lie in ruins. Millions are displaced. Critical infrastructure, power, water, hospitals has been devastated. The refugee crisis grows, with families separated and futures uncertain. For those who remain, daily life is marked by hardship and fear. The trauma will last for generations, making peace an urgent necessity. Each day of war deepens the wounds and shatters more lives. Any peace must be judged by its ability to end this suffering. The road to peace is narrow and perilous. Russia demands annexation and Ukrainian neutrality. Ukraine insists on full sovereignty. Trump's 50-day deadline adds pressure and unpredictability. Moscow must weigh battlefield realities, economic strain, and U.S. threats. A breakthrough may require a dramatic shift on the ground or outside intervention. The most likely scenario: continued fighting and stalled diplomacy. The stakes are immense. Failure means more bloodshed. Success could end Europe's worst conflict in decades. The world waits, hoping for the political will to break the deadlock. The journey to peace remains uncertain, but the cost of failure is clear.